Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friday evening worship at this Alliance of Baptists 2021 annual gathering. My name is Micah, and for the past few months, I have enjoyed the immense blessing of serving on this year's worship planning team, along with the amazing Jana Dye and the inspiring Lynn Story Bunce. And I trust that from what I've heard, you've already spent these last few hours making some beautiful connections and reconnections across this digital space, and we are only getting started. As a worship team, we wanted to approach the central thematic question of this year's gathering, how then shall we live, through a series of other questions. So in this morning's opening worship service, with the prophetic help of Reverend Aurelia, we pondered the question, how then shall we gather? And now, in this evening's worship service, we're going to quiet down a bit, get a bit meditative, a bit reflective, as we continue our deep dive into questioning by opening our hearts and spirits even more fully to the weight of the grief that we are all carrying, individually and collectively. This evening, we are gathering around our next question. How then shall we lament? Because we can't rush ourselves to a false sense of hope. We need to move through these lamentations. We first need to name and address our individual and collective laments. And I know that this might feel like a heavy question. With this past year of grief and loss and continuing injustices, with these past centuries of continuing white supremacist lies and violence, but we are in this lamenting together. We've already proven that faithful fact. We've already started the necessary change and resurrection work that we are called to do together. And we are going to now continue to co-create some responses to this question. How then shall we lament together? So we want to know, what laments have you brought to this space? Before we do that, I also have the sacred honor of giving you just a few notes and reminders, which will also be shared in the chat box momentarily. During this service, your video will be muted, but we want you to use that chat box as often as possible. Please feel free to share your meditations and reflections and to co-create this service and this liturgy using your voice in that chat box. If you have tech problems, you can text or call 910-808-1378 or email tech@allianceofbaptist.org, and we will be happy to help. And if you don't get through right away, leave a voicemail and we can call you back or send us an email and we will get back to you that way. We have Donna, who is providing us with ASL interpretation. Thank you, Donna. And to access that interpretation, simply click participants and scroll down to the one that says ASL interpreter and select the name and then pin the video. The order of worship is available on the main AG21 page where you found the link to this Zoom meeting. And we are also sharing the link to that bulletin in the chat, and we'll continue to do that throughout the service. And now, I invite you to settle your hearts and minds. This is a space for wandering and finding one another along the way. A space for quieting the noise of the world in order to listen for the still small voice inside us all, as we ask the question, how then shall we lament? With our spirits open, assured that we are carrying, naming, and reshaping all of this together. Lauren, please roll the service.
We are starting again, though we bear the weight of all through which we've been. As we journey down this road, we are called to carry on and share the load. How then shall we gather? How then shall we lament? How then shall we hope? How then shall we live?
Hello, I'm Tiffany Triplett Hinkle, pastor of Metro Baptist Church in New York City. Welcome to worship. During our service, we will center around the question, how then shall we lament? We have known great loss in recent days, certainly some more than others. So we hold space in these coming moments for the unique individual and collective grief experienced by God's beloved creation. You are invited now to settle more deeply into your own posture of worship and hear these words. How then shall we lament? With this space between us, with no physical shoulders to cry on, with these heavy stones that beg to be ruptured and remolded, with loss in our wake and an oppression in our midst, with empire and illness undoing all we erect, with the moral arc of the universe only bending as far as we bend it, how then shall we lament? We will lament by raising voices that are weary but not worn out, seeking newly life-giving paths and maps over death-dealing sin and status quos, listening for the growth of the still small seeds that regularly refuse to be drowned.
Hi, my name is Ashley Ash Ritchie from Oakland, California, and I am an Alliance of Baptists monthly donor. I contribute monthly to the Alliance because I support the journey and the commitment of anti-racism, diversity and equity, and all that we do for our communities and for the betterment of the world. I invite you to join me as a regular reoccurring donor to the Alliance of Baptists, as together we lean in, support, learn, and grow from one another to uphold our commitment one step at a time.
Hi, my name is Jason Smith, and I'm a Partnership Development Specialist with the Alliance of Baptists, and I am a monthly donor. and I want to invite you to become a monthly donor as well. Monthly donors offer steady, regular streams of support to the Alliance, and they're crucial to our progress, to our well-being, to our moving forward in the world as a movement. And so please join me and join so many others today as a monthly donor, as together we follow the wind of the Spirit into new pathways of love and justice. Thank you.
Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens. Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless soul, abide with me. I fear no foe, with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight and cheers no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where, grave, thou victory? I triumph still if thou abide with me.
And now a reading from Prelude to Spring by Reverend Dr. Pauli Mary. When I consider how this frozen field will hold within its harrowed breast a seed which shall in time yield bread for hungry mouth, I am at peace. Earth has her need of rain, and I of tears.
Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a heretic, convict, or a spy? Would you harbor a runaway woman or child, a prophet, a poet, a king? Would you harbor an exile or a refugee, a person living with AIDS? Would you harbor a Garrett, a Tubman, a True, a fugitive or a slave? Would you harbor a Haitian, Korean or Czech, a lesbian or a gay? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a heretic, convict, or a spy? Would you harbor a runaway woman or child, a prophet, a poet, a king? Would you harbor an exile or a refugee, a person living with AIDS? Would you harbor a Garrett, a Tubman, a True, a fugitive or a slave? Would you harbor a Haitian, Korean or Czech, a lesbian or a gay? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you?
Let us find our center, feet on the ground, hands in our lap or perhaps on our chest. Let us breathe and let the inhale come. Let it go and let it come. Let it come once more. Inhale and let it go. Our reflection this afternoon and evening is a Lectio Divina engagement with the wisdom of womanist, ethicist, and theologian, Reverend Dr. Emily M. Towns. We will engage a portion of an article published at yale.edu called Lament and Hope, Defying This Hot Mess. I will read this text twice. This first time, I invite you to close your eyes and hear the words. Let them in and let the words, the feelings, and the images come. Here is the reading. With our all too human unpredictability, lament can serve as an anchor to help us find our bearings on how to live as people of faith. We learned from biblical laments that it is imperative to name what is wrong with as much precision and honesty as possible, even if it hurts or causes us to wince. From the Psalms to Joel to the cross, laments tell the truth of the suffering that is smothering our worthiness, our dreams, our ability to work toward a better tomorrow. Laments mark the beginning of the healing process when we open ourselves up to look at the situations we find ourselves in and our own complicity in them, as well as the ways in which we are victimized by them. And importantly, we see and feel with clarity how this affects others who may have no direct relation to us, but who are all a part of this magnificent journey of life. So we name the horrors: bankrupt immigration policies, race baiting, white supremacy, biased drug policies, mass incarceration, troubled educational systems and policies, forms of violence, human trafficking, and more. This sad laundry list weighs on each of us in varying ways. However, by naming these things, we can address them rather than simply survive them, and realize that we are in this life together. It is foolhardy to think that we are somehow immune or unaffected by the venom being spewed as our national discourse. Naming these horrors in an unrestrained lament helps mold us into a people who respond with an emphatic no to the ways our nation and our communities of faith are turned into graven images of hatred and despair. This ends the reading. You may open your eyes. Take a moment now and type in the chat box, if you are willing, the word or feeling or image that came up for you as you heard this reflection from Dr. Towns. Take a moment. What word, what feeling, what image came to mind as you heard these words? If you will, share them with the community. I will read the text once more. This time, feel free to follow along on the screen or in your bulletin. Once again, let the words, the feelings, and the images come. Here is the reading. With our all too human unpredictability, can serve as an anchor, can serve to help us find our bearings, on how to live, on how to live of faith, as people of faith. We learned from biblical laments that it is imperative to name what is wrong with as much precision and honesty as possible, even if it hurts
or causes us to wince.
From the Psalms to Joel to the cross, laments tell the truth of the suffering that is smothering our worthiness, our dreams, our ability to work toward a better tomorrow. Laments mark the beginning of the healing process when we open ourselves up to look at the situations we find ourselves in and our own complicity in them, as well as the ways in which we are victimized by them. And importantly, we see and feel with clarity how this affects others who may have no direct relation to us, but who are all of this magnificent journey of life. So we name the horrors. Bankrupt immigration policies, white supremacy, biased drug policies, mass incarceration, troubled educational systems and policies, forms of violence, human trafficking, human trafficking. This sad laundry list weighs on each of us in varying ways. By naming these things, however, we can address them rather than we can address them, survive them, rather and realize that we are in this life, realize together that we are in this life together. It is foolhardy to think we are somehow immune or unaffected by the venom being spewed as our national discourse. Naming these horrors in an unrestrained lament helps mold us into a people who respond with an emphatic no to the ways our nation and our communities of faith are turned into graven images of hatred and despair. This ends the second and final reading. I invite you now to simply hold silence with me. And now in the chat box, I invite you again to share with the community. Let us join Dr. Towns and name the horrors that compose our lamentation today. If you will, name the horrors that compose your lamentation today. And now the benediction. This benediction is inspired by this reading and Dr. Towns's wisdom that by naming these things, we can address them rather than simply survive them, and realize that we are in this life together. We are in this life together, friends. We return to spaces and harbors like the Alliance to be reminded of that truth. These are the spaces where we have gathered, celebrated, and reimagined ourselves. And these are the spaces where we have cried and grieved and screamed and even cussed. Sikh activist Valerie Kaur says that grieving is the cost of love. You see, we grieve what we cherish, and grieving together is often the way that deep friendships and true community are formed. I am sure that our founders would agree that grief was in the room at the founding of the Alliance of Baptists. And so as we go into our happy hour, we are likely to talk about things that make us happy, but we are also likely to talk about things that grieve and distress us. My main reason for coming to Alliance gatherings back in 2002 was because these unstructured spaces are where I get to cuss and drink. I'm just saying. But this is supposed to be the benediction. So let us go out tonight, friends, knowing that part of how we live in the midst of the coronavirus and white supremacy is to remember that we are in this life together and that we can lament together, knowing that the Holy One grieves with us even as we search for new hope. So go, my friends, in God's deep love, and go, my friends, in their peace. Ashe and amen.
I went down to the sea to watch the sunrise. I went down to the salty water to watch the sunrise. To rise. Oh, take me down to that salty water. I'll wake up at 6 a.m. to watch that sunrise. To rise. Help me, I'm at sea in my motel room. I cannot sleep, oh, I can feel my doom. Help me, I'm at sea in my bed in my motel room. I'm at sea, I can't sleep in my motel room. Help me, I'm at sea in my motel room. I cannot breathe, oh, I can feel my doom. It's just me in this ship underneath the moon. It's just me shipwrecked in my motel room. Oh, it seems I've been lost at sea. Oh, it seems I've been lost for years. Oh, the waves, they're caving in on me and I can't breathe. Oh, the ceiling and the walls, they're kissing one
was lost, but it seems that I'm found. Even when my feet are not on the ground. Thought I was lost, but it seems that I'm found. Even when my feet are not on the ground.
And I'll be
I was
your
lost, but it seems that I'm found.
when you're
Even when my
feeling
feet are not on the
down.
ground.
And I'll
Thought
be
I was
your
lost, but it seems that I'm found.
when you
Even when
cannot
my feet are
find
not on
the ground. I'll be
It's a
your
sea of my own making. What is given and what is taken.
And I'll be
It's a
your
sea of my own making. What is given
cannot
and
find
what
the
is taken. Thought I was lost, but it seems that I'm found. I'm found, I'm found, I'm found, I'm found.
I thought I was lost, but it seems that I'm found. I'm found, I'm found, I'm found at sea.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the wonderful music. You know, one of the unexpected benefits of this format is we get to understand the extraordinary talent that's out there in the Alliance community. My name is Colin Holtz. I am the associate pastor of the church at Ponson Highland. And for the past several months, it has been my absolute pleasure to serve as co-chair of the planning team, along with Michael Ray Matthews, and just the most extraordinary group of individuals I've ever encountered. If there's anything you love about this annual gathering, trust me, it comes from them. If there's anything you dislike, you can blame me. I have a few announcements before we finish and close up for the day. As you've probably noticed by now, we do have a tech hotline. I just want to reiterate that, and the numbers are available in the chat and on the agenda page. If you had any trouble logging in, make sure you're going to allianceofbaptist.org/agenda. That page will get you where you need to go. Like any group of really good Baptists, I know that the thing you're most excited about is tonight's happy hours, right? If you hang out right here, we can get the party started any moment now. This will be the room for our main happy hour, but we also have wonderful opportunities to engage with other people in a series of smaller happy hours. So we have a chaplain's happy hour, one for divinity students. We have a Spanish-speaking happy hour, a pastor's happy hour, and a 35 and under happy hour. We also have a youth hangout, which I was reassured was not a youth happy hour. My last note for all of you is that we will regather tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time for worship. We will be treated to another wonderful service as we discuss the theme of how then will we hope? And we will then follow up with some celebrations about the life of the Alliance of Baptists. So thank you, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.